Hey traders, Chris Capri here, Second Skies Trading. So let's go ahead and jump into this here. We do have a couple big movers overnight. We also had earnings from NEO, one of our favorite stocks. So we'll get into that. And there's one. I'm kind of playing Bitcoin now. I'm definitely long Bitcoin, and I want to continue to add exposure to that. And we'll talk about how I'm playing that. So looking at overnight markets real quick, and then we'll look at Benzinga. So relatively stable. Asia was relatively stable. Nothing huge is standing out. Europe solid across the board. These are minor greens. These are not huge greens, but they're minor greens. They're all positive, 0.8, 0.5, 0.4%. The Pfizer news came out. Pfizer news came out that their vaccine is 95% effective. Moderna also said that their vaccine is 95% effective. I know, what's his name? Buffett has made a pharma play, which is very interesting because he generally, doesn't get too involved in pharma stocks, but in his 13F filing, quarterly 13F filing, they have exposure to pharma stocks right now, which is very interesting for you, Buffett, to make that kind of move. I haven't seen him make a type of move like that in quite a long time. So I thought that was interesting, and that he was looking to get pharma exposure. That's not like him. And he's definitely made some different moves as of late because he, has gotten long Barrick's Gold. He took a decent sized position in that. And hold on a second. They're saying the bit rate is a little bit lower than usual. Stream says good one. Current speed is 92. Huh. Okay. All right. I'll have to figure that out later when we get into stream settings. So figure out why the bit rate is not fantastic. It's only 900, not 2000. Okay. So yeah. So we're going to talk about Pfizer, and but right now S&P futures are not up huge at all. 8 points, decent. NASDAQ is pretty much treading water. For 15 points for NASDAQ is nothing. So not a lot going on overnight. We do have some movers on the day. I couldn't find any specific news on them, which is interesting, but we have AHT. So AHT, and I couldn't see anything. So I'm curious. Company has approval of U.S. patent for next generation compounds to treat neurodegenerative diseases. That's going to be a big thing in the future for sure. Neurodegenerative diseases is going to definitely be something useful. So even though there's nothing specific, this is up pretty good on the day. It's about what is that, 25% roughly, almost 30. So that's one of the big movers. And then the other big, and it's on good volume, 2.4 million with an average volume of 3.3. So we're 66% of normal daily volume in the pre-market right now, which is really good. And then MFGP, let's see if there's anything there. Micro Focus. MFGP, nothing I can find out about that. So that's interesting. MFGP is also up 28% and had a big jump, and then it's kind of formed a corrective structure at the top here. So that's kind of interesting. Might have been, yeah, this looks like overnight an Asian session basically popped, and then it's gone sideways since. So we'll take a look at those. Wow, we already got some questions coming in. So let's see here. Yanni saying good today and good luck for the move. Thank you. You as well. Malo Jet, hi Chris. Can see your preferred market is trade low cap stocks over forex as you once said. Stocks move a lot more than FX pairs, but I can see FX pairs are more predictable and smooth. I don't find that to be the case. I actually find stocks to be more predictable, and here's why. First off, my preferred market isn't low cap stocks. The stats which I'll be sharing, my performance at the end of the year, my stats show that I am most active in stocks that are between $5 and $50. So that's kind of my sweet spot. So that includes anything from low cap to mid cap to even, some large cap stocks or close to large cap stocks are in there. Every now and then I will trade the 3-figure stocks, but I like my sweet spot in terms of profitability is stocks between $5 and $50. In terms of FX pairs, more predictable and smooth, I don't see that. And the reason why I'm going to say that is that, first off, my accuracy has gone up since I started trading stocks. But the thing about it is that the one advantage, or the major advantage that stocks have over FX, is that you have access to legitimate order flow. You have access to time and sales, you have access to DOM, and you have access to volume. And since it's a centralized market, that's legitimate volume. You don't get that. You don't get that flow data in FX. So you could be trading a perfectly good breakout pattern in FX, and it looks textbook, like the textbook price action pattern for a breakout in FX. But because you don't have volume, because you don't have time in sales, you have less information to work with, and therefore that breakout becomes less predictable in terms of probabilities that the breakout is going to continue or not. Whereas when I'm trading stocks, I have access to time in sales. I have access to legitimate volume. So during a breakout, you would expect or want volume to be increasing. You would want time in sales to be moving fast. That you can't get that information when you trade FX. So in terms of predictability, I'm going to have to disagree on that one there. It's not that there's anything wrong with FX. I still trade FX. I have some FX trades open right now, but I am making way more money because there's more volatility and there's more stocks to trade than there are FX pairs. At best, your broker gives you 50 to 100 FX pairs. I have access to 30,000 stocks, and the scanners filter everything for me so that I don't have to watch them all. The scanners tell me what's moving, what the volume is, where the flow is, and then I can look at the chart super quickly and decide if that's what I trade or not. So I don't totally agree with that, but you don't have to trade stocks. The whole point of this is to give people exposure to stocks, how we select our stocks for that day, how we make trading decisions. A lot of the price action patterns that we use in trading FX, we also use in stocks. So it's up to you. The core skills of price action apply to pretty much all markets. So, that's up to you to decide what to do with that. With stocks, the prices have too many gaps and just explode thereafter, and they don't work well with technical analysis. Am I on the right track or missing? I don't agree with that. First off, the gaps, you only see the gaps because you're not seeing the aftermarket and pre-market hours. So when we look at a chart, this is aftermarket right here, aftermarket, pre-market. And so if you don't have this in your chart, then what you're going to see is you're going to see a closing price here, and then you're going to see an opening price. Let's say this is the market open here. In that case, you will see a gap. But once you set the TradingView charts, our recommended chart provider, once you set that to show aftermarket or after hours trading, then the gap really goes away. It doesn't mean that there aren't going to be gaps that can happen, but I'm not really active during that time period, and the gaps actually become your advantage. I understand what you're saying, Matt Amalajat. I actually used to not like the gaps when I first moved over from FX to stocks, but I realized actually the gaps can be an advantage. They can be a weapon that you can use for your favor. So hopefully that just gives you something different to work with there, a different perspective. Victor saying stream's good on my end, stream's good here in New York. Okay, that's good to hear. And Stefano, hello, Chris, and everyone. Gotcha. Okay, copy that. All right, so we've gone over overnight with ES and NASDAQ. DKNG has been very, very strong. We're going to get into AHT and MFGP soon. Just want to share a couple things here. DKNG has been quite strong. Let's look at the 1 hour chart. After, hitting 35, it's bounced. That's a counter trend impulsive bounce. This is super, just consistent selling, super consistent selling, continually hemmed in by VWAP, and then counter trend impulsive bounce. A little bit of choppy price action here, very volatile, kind of making new high and then making new lows, new highs, new lows. But then look at this next move since then. The last 2 days, super impulsive buying. And for those of you in the PA and the price action course, this is what we call an NV move. It's an NV trend. So that is a lot of buying. That's steady, consistent buying to go from 40.85 to 47. That's almost, what is that? Let's see. It's almost 20%. And so, yeah, that's almost a 20% move. For those of you, like are super bent on FX only, diehard FX. Okay, well, just open your mind that how many times you get a, 20% move in FX in 2 days. That's huge. So we are long DraftKings. We also have covered calls on this right now. And so I'm liking the price action on this. With this move here, we're going to run into some resistance. So let's step out for a second. We do have some resistance here. It's the bottom of this kind of head and shoulders, and here as well. I wonder if the head and shoulders completed itself. Let's see here real quick. So this is Okay, so that is 48 to 64. So it's $16. And so let's see if that move completed itself. $13. So almost. Yeah, it almost completed itself. I mean, at this point, I think it's done. So anyways, this is the neckline of the Head and Shoulders. And so you have the support here, you have the rejection here, support here, resistance here. So that's definitely going to be some resistance. But I think once it gets above that, then you're smooth sailing to 50 and right up to here. So boom, 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 all that right there at 51.70. So if it can make it that, if it can close above 50 this year, this will be a very fantastic year for me in terms of DKNG. So I'm watching that one right now. In terms of pullbacks, I'm going to watch pullbacks to the weekly VWAP. I think that's kind of a nice place to get a pullback in. It would kind of match up with, right now weekly VWAP, which will probably climb once the market opens. But right now weekly VWAP is clocking in right around 44.5. And so it's a nice pullback level with this kind of resistance here. So I'll wait for pullbacks on this to add. I don't want to be adding on breakouts right now at this point because I think this NV move, this NV trend is over. And so I think we're going to see a deeper pullback. It might go to here first, but I'd rather wait for a deeper pullback on that one there. Okay, more questions rolling in. Malajet, do stocks have right spreads like FX? Yeah, a lot of them do. Yeah, a lot of them do, for sure. Not all stocks, but while stocks don't, like for example, DraftKings is usually 1 cent, 2 cent, usually maybe 3 cents. So pretty small considering it's a, $40, $50 stock. Some stocks will have wider spreads, but the advantage that you get with stocks that you don't get with FX is volatility. So you make up the cost of the spread due to the increased volatility. Again, when does an FX pair move 20% in 2 days? Other than some crazy, like Swiss National Bank announcement, they remove the floor. There's, some really crazy moves. You're talking once in a year event. This type of 10% move happens every week, all the time, multiple times, sometimes every day. I mean, the stocks that we're going to be getting into are up 20, 30% just on the day. So SPCE, this is one I've been long as well. I'm building on this one here. I like the overall structure in this. I feel like it's building as well. But it's not really in a place that I want to sell it. I think we had a massive dump here and then a corrected pullback. And I think we got a little bit more of a pullback before we can get long on this one here. So, yeah, I'm going to hold off on space. Not really much to say about this. NEO, this was a hot one last night. So this is because it had, announcements that came out, a Q3 announcement, very impressive run at NEO. I mean, you're talking from 21 to 53, in a period of a month. That's amazing. That's, that's over 100% gain. That's a huge gain. We've been buying a lot of this. We bought on the breakout of this. We bought many times up. We had a position, we had an aggregate position yesterday going into yesterday's move. So here is, why is that? There we go. Let's go to actually this right here, 5-minute chart. So we had an aggregate long of 45 heading into this, and then NEO made an impressive run late in the session there, right before it released Q3 earnings. And so once I saw that this thing was dumping off fast on the 5-hour chart, it went from almost tagged 50, and in like 10 minutes, it had dropped 75 cents. It just kept dropping. So I closed my longs on that, took about roughly a $3 profit on that one, which was on the aggregate longs, and then waited for the announcement, which came in aftermarket hours. It was about 4 p.m. Pacific. So it was 7 p.m. Eastern. And so that's when the conference call happened. And as you can see, boom, boom, huge dump. And that's because their earnings were slightly negative. But it was still a surprise. They were estimating negative 18 cents. It was negative 15 cents. And so more information came out that sales, even though the earnings came out still negative, it was a positive surprise and sales were up. So you had a really big flash. And so once it popped again, I bought on the dip. And also for those of you that are option traders, you know that implied volatility always tends to, or almost always tends to increase heading into earnings announcements. And then what happens to IV What happens to implied volatility after earnings announcements? Who knows the answer to this one for my option trading students in there? I know Stefano might have one this one here. Victor, are you in the options boot camp? Justin, I think you're in it. Justin saying never does an FX pair move 20% in 2 days. Yeah, other than a flash crack, it's not going to happen. So who knows the answer to what happens to implied volatility the majority of the time after an earnings announcement? Anybody want to take a stab at that one? See who's got the skills to figure that out. Stefano says, I wish Chris not in the boot. Stefano, you're not in the boot camp? I'm kind of shocked about that one. I thought you'd be in the boot camp. You should be. You should be. You would like the, I think you'd really like the, I think you really like the options. I think you'd really get a lot out of it. Okay, so who answered? Alwyn. Okay, IV will drop. Yes, I have all but day trading courses. Okay, gotcha. Volatility crush. There you go. It's called IV crush. So implied volatility usually drops massively. Soren's got it. So good. Some players here. Okay, so volatility goes down. Implied volatility goes down after most announcements. The reason being is implied volatility is usually building leading into announcements. And most often, IV will often fall after that. And that's because after the announcements, the surprise to the announcement usually isn't as big a surprise as people want. Positions are dumped. Generally, when stocks sell off, sometimes IV will increase. But in this particular case, almost after every earnings announcement, IV will collapse. And this is what we call an IV crush. And so IV crush is that term for earning or implied volatility collapsing. Because traders are building in positions leading into earnings, they're trying to profit from that particular move. And a lot of that, can be baked into the price leading into announcements. After it's all said and done, most of the positions start to fade away. So IV gets crushed. And therefore, the pricing on the options changes massively. So made a good bet on a strangle with Neo. Yeah, those are great volatility plays to take. Strangles and straddles are great volatility plays to take, especially once the announcement is done, because you're going to see IV collapse massively. So with that being said, if you know that volatility is going to go down, so let's get our fancy drawing tool. If you know that IV is going to go down once the announcement comes out, well, then what do you want to do if you're long Neo? What do you want to do right before the earnings comes out? What would be a potential trade play? Who knows the answer to this one? This is a tough question. Lewis Robertson, sell cover calls. Very good. Very nice, Lewis. Very nice. So you take advantage of the high IV. You take advantage of the high IV. So right before this, like right when this thing happened, I started selling a bunch of calls because I knew that IV would be highest right about this point here. So IV pretty much peaked right around here. And I sold a bunch of calls, and I sold calls that are pretty far out of the money. I sold a 55 and a 60. And so, unless there was some major surprise to the earnings, like it was a huge beat, the chances that this was going to hit 50 and 55 was very slim. It had already, had quite a wild ride. So I sold a bunch of calls right around this point, and then announcement came out. Price has collapsed since then. IV has collapsed. So I pretty much top ticked the IV. I was trading IV leading into the announcement, placing a bet that basically, hey, I don't think there's going to be any major beat to the numbers. It's not going to be so gangbusters that this thing's going to jump from 49.50 to 55.60 within a matter of days. So sold the cover calls, and I'm anxious to see how they're repriced this morning, because there's probably going to be a massive repricing once the market opens in 8 minutes. And basically those calls that I sold for X amount of dollars, they're going to be worth a lot less. So that means that I'm going to make a ton of money on them. Basically, I sold them for an expensive price. Now those same items are worth less. And so whoever has them, their option is going to be, their calls that they bought are going to be worth a lot less. So if it's a big enough move, I'll just close out the position early, take my profit and run. But yeah, so we basically top tick the volatility on this, the IV on this. We're basically trading volatility. Okay, so that's NEO. That's what I'm going to talk about that. Moving on, let's take a look at the news movers for today. So AHT and MFGP hasn't really moved since then. AHT's moved a little bit. So looking at AHT, how do I want to play this? First off, I'm going to mark the intraday pre-market high, 617. And this is kind of where it closed, 448. So if you look at the intraday high or the pre-market high, why is that not clicking over? There we go. If we look at the pre-market high and where it matches up on the weekly, that's very interesting. So I just clicked the pre-market highs and look where it matches up. It matches up right to a major support level on the weekly chart. So I do have, here's the current pre-market price, 581. It's 37 cents below this major resistance here. So since this is a major resistance level on the weekly, actually, let's see, if it does clear this, how far do I think it can go? I think 767, 7 3/4. I think maybe a move to 9s, potentially 10. Yeah. So I think if it can clear 617, it's got some room to run. With that being said, looking at the 1 hour, how would I like to play this? I don't want to be trading a breakout right now. There's no real pressure that's built up here. We had the one touch, and then that was back in the 9th of November, and here we are 9 days later, and we're touching again. But there's no pressure building here at this point. So I'm going to wait and see and let this build up a little bit of pressure at the highs here. Build some price action here, continue to squeeze. Then I'll look to trade the breakout, assuming volume and volatility is good and time and sales are good. What's the volume right now? 4.9 million. So we are about 133% of normal average daily volume. That's very good. That means the stock is in play. It's attracting institutional interest. It's attracting players. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So I'll let this build up some pressure. If the volume, time, and sales continues, then I'll look to trade your breakout. Otherwise, I will wait for a pullback either to 448 or maybe $5. And then watch the time and sales, watch the price action. If I see some large buyers coming in, if I see, the offers getting absorbed by the bids and everything looks good on the order flow and the DOM and TNS, then I will look to buy at 5, try and target 6, and then hope for a breakout of 617. In the meantime, I'm going to set an alert just above the highs here. So if it does happen to break out, I'm alerted about that. Then I can tune right back to it. And then I'll set another alert at $5 on that one there. And we'll do one here at 448 just in case. So that's how I'm going to play AHT. How are we doing on time? 6:26. Okay, 4 minutes before the market's open. MFGP, nothing's really happened since then. And I mean, the volume's good, but nothing's happened to the stock since then. It's just gone sideways. And I can't find any news on it there. So I'm going to be a little bit more skeptical on this one here. I'll probably take a pass. I will keep it on the list here, on the list of tabs, and I'll keep an eye on it. I'll set an alert just above the pre-market highs in case it breaks that. Plug, another EV kind of car, very much stock like NEO. It's been doing very, very well. I mean, this is an incredible run from 6 to 24. You're talking, that's a 400% gain. I do think we are getting a little bit stretched, and you can see it's huge 2 weekly gains here. I mean, those are enormous gains from 14 to 24. That's a huge gain. That's like what, 60+% gain in 2 weeks. So with the weekly chart being a little on the extended side, I'm going to prefer deeper pullbacks. Looking at this little sell-off here, this is impulsive, this is corrective, this is impulsive. This is a corrective move into VWAP. If it gets above VWAP, then it might, push towards the highs here, but I would rather wait. I'm leaning towards, as long as VWAP holds, I'm leaning towards another impulsive leg down. So I would consider potentially a shallow pullback at 2187. That lines up with the bottom of this pullback, which you can see here, and the resistance here on this one here, and support here. So that would be a shallow pullback area. Otherwise, I'd like to wait for a deeper pullback, potentially to right around 1960, somewhere between 20 and 1960. That's this support here. There's a little bit of support here, and this resistance here. So I'm going to set an alert for that one as well. But I'm going to prefer to take pullbacks on this one here. It's the first time we're below the weekly VWAP on a consistent basis and stayed below it and treating it as resistance. This was a corrective move and it was below it. This is below it on selling off. That's different. So those are two different scenarios. Hence, I'd rather wait for a little bit of a pullback on this one. I'm feeling like plug is a little on the extended side. XME, we posted a chart on this in the community channel that we said, hey, it had a major weekly breakout and we expect more upside, and pretty much it opened the week and has gained since then. We've been long XME on this weekly breakout. We took profit up here. We're kind of letting it develop a little bit. XME has been one of our favorite indexes. And it's been kind of sitting in this little corrective structure at the top here. So for the last 2 days, it hasn't been going in here. So I'm going to watch this here. I'd like this to build a little bit. I prefer a little bit of a deeper pullback, maybe towards this kind of weekly high here around mid 27s, and then buy it for another breakout. It hasn't exactly, it had 2 weeks breakout, but it, this corrective structure is pretty thick. So I think, maybe a pullback towards maybe monthly view up on this one here. So I'd like to buy a dip on this one here, but I will watch this corrective structure and for a potential break. If it breaks 29, then you're going to start targeting the majors, 30 being a big round number, which is right there. And then it has scope for 30.81 and potentially towards 32.71, which would be a nice long-term target. So that's what I'm playing on XME. We've already talked about NEO. I think that pretty much covers what we got on the docket. Any other movers for today? MFGP 27% and AHT 31%. So those are the big movers. And the market's open. Okay, so I can take just a couple minutes here to do some open Q&A, and then we'll wrap it up. Jason, good to see you. Nat Gas. Okay, let's take a look. Do you want Henry Hub or do you want NG1? I'll stick with NG1. Okay, I was looking at Nat Gas, short 280, stop loss 290, take profit 22. It's got this interesting, you got this resistance here. This is a swing point here. So from here to here, you got a little bit of a support zone here. And this is a pretty strong sell-off. Boom, boom. Yeah, on a 4, that probably looks weird. Volume building into the climax here. Volume decreasing on the sell-off. Let's take a look at 4 hour real quick. Yeah, there's a decent base of support here. You want to short at 2.9. I'm not crazy about 2.9. I would wait. I would prefer something like 2.92 or maybe 3.06. That would be my more preferred trading location. So you can see 3.06 is pretty clean. Nice resistance here, resistance here, resistance here. And if I was to take an earlier short, maybe 2.928. Those would be my preferred levels on this one here. And ideally, it moves in a corrective fashion because on the weekly, this has been building for a while. 3-week pullback, nice extension up. So it's not the cleanest trend yet. And there is a little bit of rolling over price action. So yeah. If there was a potential breakout structure around here, I may consider it, but I prefer a deeper pullback on that one, Jason. That's just my thoughts on that one. Victor wants to take a look at CRSR. Corsair Gaming. Interesting. Is that the headset company? Is that the one that makes the headset? I'm trying to think. Because I bought some headsets from a company called Corsair. Wow, this thing's going gangbusters. 15 to 30, it's already up 100%. Wow, how is this one not on my list? Okay, let me take a look at this one here. I'll put it in the NA stocks. I should create like a tech list. You're welcome, Jason. Wow, this thing's going gangbusters. So let's see here. Not the cleanest trend. Like this one, yeah, it seems to overshoot a little bit. Look at the pullbacks, they overshoot. So it's not the cleanest trend, but then it gets a nice pelican-like breakout, as you can see. I'm kind of seeing like it's kind of messy. It's not the cleanest. It's definitely not the cleanest. I mean, this is a very strong move, but being that it hasn't been this clean, they make headsets, keyboard, PC cases. Okay, this is that company. Okay, I like their headset. So, okay. With that being said, being that this hasn't been the cleanest of trends, I would rather wait for a deeper pullback. I think 30 might not be a bad play. I don't like how this hasn't been respecting prior support and resistance levels. It's just super unclean. Maybe because it's a new stock, people are still generating interest. The average daily volume is 2 million. So I would wait for a deeper pullback, maybe towards 30, and then I consider getting long. But thank you for bringing this one up here, because this is it's a tech stock. It's great for the millennials of this generation. They follow this. They know the tech really well. So I really like adding these types of stocks. Whatever Robinhood traders are trading, I want to trade. They're definitely bringing volatility to the market, and that's awesome. We needed like a new generation of traders to come in, and a new generation of perspectives and where they focus their attention and what stocks. And I think the Robinhood community has been great for the markets. It's been great for me. It's been awesome. I want more of them to come in. So I think they should find a new platform. I'm not a fan of the Robinhood platform, but that's just my opinion. But yeah, I think they've been great for the market. So thanks for bringing this one up. I will definitely keep this one on my radar. But yeah, I prefer a pullback to 30 on this one here. So that's my recommendations on that. Okay. With that being said, I have to wrap this up because I got to get trading the markets. I did a interview with the Lazy Trader, and so I want to share this one with you. It just came out yesterday, so I'm going to post the link here. Please make sure you go to the interview. It's a great interview. I really enjoyed it. We got into some really interesting topics, and a lot more personal topics that I haven't quite shared as much. Certain points in time when I thought about giving up on trading, and just some of my personal challenges and things I've learned over 20 years. So trading is one of those things where experience matters. It really matters. I see a lot of young, new Robinhood trading gurus coming out, throwing size around, and they're just executing poor risk management, and they're gambling, and they don't know what they're doing. They think they know what they're doing or not. Some are doing okay, but the majority of them, I think, have a lot to learn. And experience with skills is a winning formula. And so you don't necessarily have to have 2 decades experience to make money trading. You could make money trading the next 6 months or a year. You can be consistently profitable within 6 months to a year from now, but experience does matter. And that is something that can't be replaced. And so, I probably am one of the more experienced traders out there, especially on YouTube right now. So with that being said, make sure you watch that interview. I hope you guys check that out and also give it a thumbs up. And if you enjoyed today's session, also give us a thumbs up here on the stream. We really appreciate it. Leave your comments below if you learned anything from that. I'm going to switch to the live trading room for our stock trading course members. So I will see you in the live trading room in just a few minutes. And we'll be doing some live trading this morning with whatever's moving. Other than that, thank you all for coming, Malajat, and all your good questions. I appreciate it. And everyone else, if this is your first time here, welcome. So good luck trading today, and I will see you guys next